Hello and a good morning, good afternoon, and a very good evening to you. The Gun with Tube. Hope you are feeling grand and all is well in your world. Hello. So welcome to another A&Q Wednesday. Got it right, yay. Let's dive into question one, shall we? Yes, we shall. Okay, so question one is: in June 2018, you did a video on the Zoom G2.1u as your desert island pedal. Has that changed since you've received other pedals recently, namely the Line 6 Helix LT and the Zoom G5N? Out of those two pedals, no. I still prefer the Zoom over the Helix and the G5. I still prefer the G2 over those two. It clashes with the Line 6 HX. Now that's where the water started to get a little bit muddy, if you will, because I will always love the Zoom G2. I've used it since 2005, and I don't think I'll ever not have one somewhere, if that makes any sense. Like, I mean, at this point in time, the pedal board that's sat underneath you all is like a hybrid of my two favourite multi-effects units, which is the G2 and the HX. But is the G2.1u still my desert island pedal? It's hard to say because of the Line 6 HX. Because the HX is more versatile, it's got more effects, and also it's got more ability to... obviously, you can have individual effects. You can have 6 individual effects on and off at a time, and you can have 9 effects. And also, you can also do kind of like, it's got the effects loop. You can do the, a 4-cable method. You've got a lot more options with the HX, and then you have the Zoom G2. But the G2 has always been the brain of my pedal board, and I'm using them both together at this point in time. This pedal board here that I've got right here now, which is my kind of this is my main board. I'm using the Zoom G2 and I'm using the HX at the same time. The G2 is kind of covering what it's always covered, the brain. Yeah, the main kind of like, it's my tuner. It's got reverbs in it. Because I like to have reverb on an expression pedal. I'm not using the HX for reverb unless I'm using the HX alone. But you can always do that with HX. So you can always assign expression pedals. Yeah. If you were to put me on a desert island right now with one of these pedals, the G2 or the HX, I would have to pick the HX. As much as that pains me to say that so much, because how much I love the G2 and how much of my, how much time I've spent with it and how many gigs I've done with the G2, the HX just has everything. You know what I mean? It functions like a pedal board. You know what I mean? You can, like I say, you can have up to 9 pedals at a time with 6 individuals to turn off and on, and I like that versatility. I mean, when did I get the G2? Not the G2, sorry, the HX. I forget when I got the HX now, but as soon as I got the HX and programmed it in, it only took me like an hour or two. It didn't take me long to program a HX at all. And it hasn't changed since. I was just happy with it straight out of the gate, and I do love the HX. The only thing I hate about the HX is its power. You have to use its kind of external, the power thing it comes with. For some reason, the Voodoo Labs pedal power will not power it. The Zoom G2 doesn't have that issue, and that's my only qualm about the HX effects is you need the adapter that or another adapter that works with it, otherwise it just won't power up, and it's a bit finicky like that, and I don't really know why Line 6 did that and didn't make it pedal board power compatible. I don't really understand why that is the way it is, but it's kind of annoying, to be honest with you. That it really gets on my nerves. And also the the plug on the Zoom G2 is absolutely not sorry the Zoom G2 on the Line 6 HX is absolutely stupid for live work because it sticks. It's so big. My lord, come on, that wasn't easy. Yeah, look at the size of this thing. Yeah, it's massive, and also it sticks out that way. So if you're using like an extension lead loom, basically like one of those handbag reels where you've got the 4 inputs. If you plug that into one of the inputs on one of those handbag kind of power looms things, this part sticks over the other side. So you can't plug anything into this side because of this stupid thing. So I don't know why Line 6 did this. I don't get it whatsoever. It's really ridiculously massive. If it was the other way round, if it hung like if like on handbag reel thing, and it plugged in the other way round. So if this was like the opposite and it hung off, that'd be great. But it's still massive and still obnoxious. And also, they're not exactly the most. I'm super careful with this because these are super fragile. You know what I mean? Everything about this is not built to last. You know what I mean? It's not like the pedal itself, the actual expression, the power is. I don't think this is built to last. It's very, it just feels weak, and like if you bend it about too much, it'll probably break it. So anyway, but I do love the HX immensely. It's one of those pedals that, like I've always said it. If it broke, I would buy another one. But the same thing goes for the G2. If the G2 broke, I would just buy another one. I mean, I have 3 of the things, and I do love them immensely. And I would still happily go to any gig with just the G2 1.1u and be happy with it. But I would be happy with the HX. So has my Desert Island pedal shifted? Reluctantly, yes, to the HX. I still love the G2, and I will never not have a G2 with me. Like I say, my main board is a G2 and the HX. Because I'm so accustomed to the G2, using it for so many years. I just know it inside and out. And so no matter what kind of issues I get, it just works, you know what I mean? And it also, it was the pedal that really made me understand what I wanted out of a guitar sound, like, clean distortion and all that kind of lot. And until, like, obviously the Governor and the Jackhammer and all that kind of came along. But I've got a real soft spot for the Zoom G2.1u, and it'll always be one of my favourite pedals of all time. And I will always love it because... we spent a lot of time together, me and the G2. Especially the one that's sat over there in retirement now. We've spent a lot of hours whiling away the wee hours of the morning, should I say? Experimenting with different effects and sounds and this, that, and the other, and trying to just understand things. And like I say, it's always been the brain of my pedal. Until the HX came along, the G2 was everything. You know what I mean? It was the brain that controlled everything, and then the HX came along, and it kind of like I don't feel the HX is better or any better in any way than the G2, but I do think the HX is more versatile because it is, and it has more options, which it does, and it also has obviously more modern technology, which makes it kind of a lot more kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Because it's more modern. It just has a bit more kind of. I can't think of the exact word I'm after here. I don't know. It just. I'm not going to say it's a better pedal. It's just more versatile. It's just got more in it. It's got more options, and also the ability to have kind of like six effects set up as individual pedals, and then another 3 in reserve, like hidden, that you can have on all the time. Because the way I run the HX effects, not at this point in time, but if I'm using the HX on its own, I have a overdrive pedal, a 10-bandy graphic EQ, and a reverb on all the time behind the scenes, basically controlling everything. Up until finding obviously the Tone City Golden Plexi and obviously the Jackhammer, the Zoom did that for me, but the Zoom doesn't do that anymore. But there's pluses and minuses on each side of everything, but has my Desert Island pedal changed since the review in 2018? Yeah, the HX just kind of like came in and just kind of stole the show and also I've been using the HX for the last, like I say, I don't think I've finished this sentence, but I was using it with Duke's Deluder solely as it is, and I was also using it for the Trio a few times as well. Had more Duke's gigs than I did Trio gigs, but when I did a couple of Trio gigs, I used the HX with just the Vox Wah-Wah. And, it was fine. It worked, flawlessly. And it's also smaller space, stage space. And it's just one of those... It's just one of those kind of epiphany pedals, the HX was. When the HX came along, I was just literally like, oh my god. This is absolutely incredible, because it is. And I would recommend HX any day of the week. Yes, it's expensive. It's 400 quid. But is it 400 quid well spent? Definitely. I mean, I've always had a multi-effects unit. I've never not had a multi-effects unit. There's been a couple of gigs where I've turned up with kind of like... I remember doing a gig once where I had... where I've done certain gigs. When I used to play with my friend Charlie in the Broom Busters, I just used to turn up with an amp and just channel switch. But it was always... I always miss my Zoom. And same thing with the HX. If I go somewhere without the HX, I always miss it. And the thing about the HX is the ability to kind of switch pedal boards. So you can have so many different kind of pedal boards for so many different things, and you can just have... Because I use it when I play acoustic, I use it when I play electric, I use it for the Trio. I've got a pedal board in there set up just for the Trio. I've got a pedal board in there just for acoustic, and I've got a pedal board set up just for this pedal board, and I've got another 2 pedal boards set up for certain things, more ambient stuff, and then more kind of like, a straight ahead kind of preset that I would go out with full stop. And you can't really do that with the Zoom G2.1u. You are limited because you can only bank up and down, so you have to have things in a linear way. You don't do that with a HX. My Desert Island pedal has changed definitely from the Zoom G2 to the Line 6 HX. I'm in deep love with both of them, but the HX just is a beast. The Zoom G2 is a beast. I will always love the Zoom G2. It's like I'm trying to think of a good example. It's like I'll always love certain pedals or certain guitars or certain amps, but there's always kind of one thing that pulls me back into into certain directions. That just makes me go, oh my god, that is, as much as it pains me to say it, that's better. And sometimes you don't want to admit something's better, do you? It's like sometimes you're just like, no, it can't be better, but it is. But I'm not going to admit that. But I have to. So, and that's with the HX. I mean, it's just incredible. HX is incredible. It really is. And the setup I have at this point in time, this pedal board that's underneath you, which I'll talk about in a minute because there's like a bit of a bonus thing I want to get to. I need to hurry up actually. Otherwise I've got another 3 questions to answer. But the pedal board that's sat underneath you at this point in time is my happy place. I have a Zoom G2, I have a Line 6 HX, and then I have other pedals. And it's just like, I'm so spoiled with this pedal board. There's nothing I need. You know what I mean? There is nothing I need. The HX covers it, and what the HX doesn't cover, the Zoom covers. And what the Zoom and the HX don't cover, the other pedals do. So, jobs are good. So has it changed? Yeah, definitely. The Zoom G5N, I still prefer the Zoom G2 over the G5N. The G5N is good, but the Zoom G2 I think is better. I still just prefer it. In all fairness, I haven't played the G5N for a while now. It's just kind of sat. I haven't really touched it. I just don't really... As much as I love it, I just don't really use it a great deal anymore. But saying that, I did plug it in the other day and forgot how much I really enjoyed messing around with it, so... But yeah, I do love the G5N, but I still prefer the Zoom G2. The Helix is too finicky for me. if I didn't understand the HX as well as I did, the Helix would have been a nightmare. I'm just not that way inclined with the Helix. The Helix is great. I would have the Helix over the Zoom G5N. I wouldn't have it over the Zoom G2. So at this point in time, my kind of like numero uno multi-effects unit pedal is the HX Effects by Line 6. I just adore that thing. It's sat right there and I just love it. And I say I've been using it constantly for like the last 2 years, live and at home and for recording, and I just can't. Anything I ever need, I can find it. Anything I want it to do, it does. You know what I mean? And it's just like, oh my god, and it's got particle verb. Be still, my beating heart. You know, seriously, particle verb. Oh. You'll hear that in every intro jam forever, probably. I tend to overuse it. Can you overuse particle verb, Dave? No, you can't, Dave. Thank you very much, Will. Thank you very much, Dave, for clearing it up. That's okay, Dave, but you should really learn how to speak, shouldn't you? I know, but I am working on it. Okay. So yeah, it has changed. Definitely. And like I say, Line 6 just has, the HX just has more versatility and more variety and stuff like that. Still love the G2 though. Always love the G2.1u. It's one of my best mates. It really is, and it always will be. I'll always love it. Okay, so I'm going to move on to question 2 now, before I get too gushy. Okay, so question 2 is, are you going to do Skype lessons? This keeps coming up. And I keep, every time this comes up in a question, I will answer it. And I will say, yes, I will get around to Skype lessons. It'll probably be towards the end of the year now, with getting round to it. Just because of certain things that are going on. You know, and what's not. But yeah, I will be doing Skype lessons. Yeah, probably, like I say, they're probably more towards the end of the year. And kind of got to go from there, really. But at this point in time, it's not really... I can't really focus on it. I've got too much kind of like, you know, going on with one thing or another, mainly brain orientated, and I can't focus on it. It's just things are just not working. I'm not working very well. Let's just put it that way. But yes, Skype lessons is a yes, definitely, and I will get to it towards the end of the year. Hopefully, fingers crossed, and touch wood. And yeah, all hopefully will be well on that front. So yeah, fingers crossed. So yeah, that was probably the quickest answer ever in an A&Q on Wednesday. Okay, sorry about that, everyone. Okay, so we're going to move on to question 3 now. I had to do a bit of research quick to question 3 because I wasn't sure if the guitar I was about to talk about was something. I'll get to in a sec. So, question 3 is, have you played a 3-pickup Black Beauty, a Les Paul, Gibson or Epiphone, and how does it compare to the 2-pickup Black Beauty? I have played a 3-pickup Les Paul. I've played the Gibson and the Epiphone, and I've also obviously played the 2-pickup one. Funnily enough, I was going to say this. The best Les Paul custom I ever played was, well, there was 2 actually. I can't say it was particularly one, but there was 2 really amazing Les Paul Black Beauties I played. One was a custom. It was two humbuckers, and it had a gold Bigsby, and it was in an old hat, and it was literally incredible. We had a few customs at Old Hat. We had a couple of white ones, and we had a couple of black ones. But the black one with the gold Bigsby, I demoed it years like 2014. That was probably one of the best customs I've ever played. It was it played amazingly. It sounded amazing. It stayed in tune with a Bigsby. It was just amazing. Absolutely amazing guitar. I remember it coming into the shop, and it was just like, you know, I fell a little bit in love with that guitar. It was really an amazing guitar. The other one I'd played, which was absolutely amazing, was before I worked in Old Hat. It was about a year or so before I worked there. I would obviously, you know, go in and whatnot. But before I worked there, there was a original 50s Black Beauty Les Paul, and it was the one with the staple pickup and the P90. I forget the exact year of it. I want to say 54, but I think that's totally wrong. I don't know why that date's in my head. I don't think it was that year, but I don't remember what year it was. It's been such a long time. I mean, that would have been 2010. That guitar would have been there. So so 2010. And that was the second best custom I've ever. Well, it was on par with the Gibson. Given the choice, I prefer the older one because of the P90 and the staple pickup. The staple pickups are amazing, but that was the other custom that I tried, and I was just like, oh my god, it was so amazing. It had the original fretless Wonder frets, which weren't the easiest to play, especially not for bending, but such an amazing guitar, and it was so played in, it was so warm, it was lacquer checked, and heaven. I wish I got to demo it, at least got a picture of that guitar, because it was so good. And yeah, what a guitar. But I could have sworn to you, before I looked it up, that the Les Paul custom with the gold Bigsby was a free humbucker model. But it isn't, it was the 2 pickup model. I prefer, personally, I like the look of the free humbuckers. And again, the reason is, because when I first saw John Frusciante playing a Les Paul, because everything always stems back to John Frusciante with me. When I first saw John Frusciante play a Les Paul, it was the Mother's Milk era Les Paul, which it was the Black Beauty with the 3 gold humbuckers, and I just thought that is I've got the VHS video, and that was the first time I'd seen John playing a Les Paul, and I was just like, that is the coolest looking Les Paul I've ever seen, and I just loved it, and yeah. I just like the free humbucker one because of John. But then, yeah, John later on in the By the Way tour and the Stadium Arcadium tour had the Black Beauty as well, but with 2 humbuckers. And that looks cool as well, especially with the covers off the humbuckers. It looks really cool. But I like the free humbucker gold Black Beauties. Just the other day I was looking at the Defender Blacktop Strats. And I was looking at the one that's white with the 3 gold humbuckers. Guess you're a bit hot under the collar, that does. But yeah, absolutely stunning guitar. But yeah, coming back to the Les Paul. Yeah, I could have sworn the one I played in Old Hat was a 3 humbucker one, but it isn't. It was 2. But that, along with the original old vintage one, was the best customs I've ever played. But I prefer the look of the 3 humbucker ones. There's just something about the 3 humbucker ones. It's so cool. I used to have a 3 humbucker SG Epiphone, and that was a really cool looking guitar. It wasn't a whole tune for toffee. It used to drive me up the wall. I eventually sold it because it wouldn't stay in tune. Knowing what I know now, I could probably like fix that really easily, but I didn't know that at the time, so I eventually sold it, which was a bit silly because it was an amazing guitar, and I shouldn't have sold it really, but you know. Mistakes are what they are. You learn from them. But yeah, how do they compare to each other? I don't really know. I mean, in all fairness, it comes down to the kind of like, you know, different kind of tonality, obviously, of having that middle pickup, and it depends on how they're wired. Because you can get certain ones where you can kind of like blend the middle pickup in over the bridge and the neck, or you can have it so when the pickup selector's in the middle, it's just the middle humbucker. You know, you can wire them in such weird ways. I think Peter Frampton's got the one, because his Phoenix Les Paul, that's wired where one of the volume controls, I think it's the back tone control, is a separate volume for the middle pickup, so you can bring the middle pickup in over the neck and the bridge pickups, so you can kind of get a blend. And then if you want the middle pickup alone, or you just turn the volume down, you turn like the volume down on the bridge and the neck, and I think he's got a master volume for both of them though, but I could be wrong. And then you just kind of have the middle one. It's like a Hofner kind of way of doing pickup selecting. But yeah, I always like the 3 humbucker ones. I just think they look cool. And again, it comes back down to John Frusciante. I always love the look of it. I remember watching him on this VHS video playing Good Time Boys on it, and I was just like, oh, that's so cool. That's such a cool looking Les Paul. You know, the black and the gold, and then the white, what is it, the black, white, binding or whatever it is, and you know, you got the custom logo, you got the custom headstock with the binding and the diamond inlay, and then you got the big block inlays down the fretboard and the ebony fretboard, and I do love Les Paul Customs. I really do love Les Paul Customs. I have no desire to own one whatsoever, but I certainly love them. And if I ever got the desire to own one, it'd have to be a free humbucker one. I would have to have a free humbucker one. But like I say, funnily enough, the best ones I've played were 2 pickup. I could have sworn the one I played in Old Hat with the Bigsby was 3 pickup, but I am wrong. It was 2. But yeah, I prefer the look. Maybe I just wanted it to be 3 pickup, which wouldn't surprise me. But yeah, so how does it compare? It's just personal preference. You know what I mean? It is what it is. Like I said, I prefer the look of the 3 pickup one, but the best ones I've played are 2 pickup. So that's neither here nor there really. But you just gotta take each one on its merits, really. You know what I mean? Some 3 pickup ones will be really good, some will be really bad. Some 2 pickup ones will be really good, some will be really bad. And it depends on the pickups as well in the Black Beauty. It depends, or the pickups are such an important part. It's like a speaker cabinet. Getting the right pickups for you is so important. So how do they compare? Again, I can't really say because it's all personal preference. But I say the best ones I found were the 2 pickup ones over the 3 pickup ones. I've tried the 3 pickup ones and I do like them, but the best ones I've played were the ones that stick in my head. Funny enough, the ones that stick in my head are the 2 pickup ones, obviously, because but I could have sworn that was 3, but it isn't, Dave. But yeah, so how do they compare? It's just personal preference. It is what it is, so to say. But yeah, I could have sworn that was a 3 pickup one. Anyway, shut up, Dave. I was rambling. But yeah, how do they compare? I don't know. I would say the 3 pickup ones are heavier. I remember the 3 pickup Gibson I played was an absolute boat anchor. Absolute boat anchor. And it was one of those guitars. I remember I was playing it, sat down at Old Hat, and I was playing it for about half an hour, give or take, half hour, 45 minutes, I want to say. And I remember my right leg went dead. It was sat, obviously, on my right leg, so I wasn't stood up. And my right leg, when I got up, I got pins and needles because it was so heavy. It's kind of like, it almost, well, no, it did. It cut off the circulation to my bottom of my leg, so I got pins and needles. So they are heavy, but customs are heavy anyway, and that is the whole point of a custom, I feel. Is like, they're supposed to be heavy things. I remember that original 50s one was a real weight. It was a real boat anchor. The original 50s Les Paul custom, that was an absolute beast of a guitar. So it's such a heavy guitar. But yeah, oh my god, what a guitar! I don't know if I've ever told the story. I don't know. The story of where that guitar went is quite amusing. I remember John, the guy who worked there, told me about it. What happened was this guy. I probably told this story before, but I'll tell it again because tangents and all that. But I remember it must have been about 2010, and apparently it was just a normal day in the shop, and this Maserati car, I swear it was a Maserati. It was a very expensive sports car. I swear it was a Maserati. Pulled up outside the shop. So it pulled up on double yellow lines on a main road, just outside the shop. And this guy came walking into the shop, got out of the car, walked into the shop, and he says, "I hear you've got a old Les Paul custom." And John was like, yeah, do you want to see it? And he's like, yep. So he took him down the back of the shop, right to the back of the shop where it was, and he took it off the wall, and he said, "Oh, here it is." And he goes, "Yeah, I'll have that." And John was like, "Do you want to play it?" He goes, "No." And so John went and got the case, boxed it up, guy paid for it in cash, and it was obviously very expensive, and put it in his car and drove off. That was it. And the whole exchange probably took about 10 minutes. And it was like, and John was like saying it was one of the weirdest ones ever. Like, you did get some strange things like that. I remember the guy who came to buy John Entwistle's 62 Strat. I remember he came into the shop. He had, I can't remember how much we sold that guitar for now, but I remember he had 15 grand in a suitcase. I can't remember, that wasn't all of it though. It didn't sell for that. But I remember he had 15 grand in like an attaché case. It was so dodgy, and he was a banker from London. And I remember like he handed this like attaché case over, and he paid the rest on his card. I just remember watching him kind of go, wow. and he just walked out with John Entwistle's 62 Strat, which in all fairness wasn't that great of a guitar. So, he bought it as an investment though. I asked him, did he play? And he goes, no, I don't play. So, It was just an investment. He said he was going to put it in his bank vault, and that was that. So, yeah. Sad to hear that. Yeah, the guitar wasn't great. It wasn't the best Strat in the world at all. There were better Strats in the shop, definitely. That wasn't great at all. As 62 Strats go, you know, you'd think like, you know, the way certain things are... It was kind of an eye-opener for me because obviously my dream guitar is a 62 Strat. And that was the first 62 Strat I'd ever got to play. And I was just like, oh. I was really disappointed. I was like, here's this mythical beast, and all of a sudden it just isn't, you know. It's a Minotaur, right, but it's about that big, you know, and it was just like, I remember it didn't play very good, it didn't sound very good, it was overly bassy. I remember like the low end on that thing was just like ridiculous. It was always like massively thumpy, and it didn't play very well. The neck wasn't particularly comfortable. It just didn't do anything. It was just lifeless. It was just kind of like, meh. It was never great, you know. It wasn't until playing that 64 Strat I was like, holy monkeys. You know, and then obviously playing Malcolm 62, which, you know, I'm lucky enough to own now, lucky boy. You know, I was like, oh my god. And the thing is, that is the thing about vintage guitars, is like, you know, a lot of people, including me, were always under that kind of like illusion, and is a proper illusion, that because it's old, it's good, and that isn't the case. And I learned a lot of old hat about kind of like how you take each guitar and its merits, and a good guitar is a good guitar regardless of what it is and its price point is. Because it's like, you know, we had a 59 Gibson 335. It was terrible, utterly terrible. John Entwistle 62 Strat, terrible. We had a 1959 Telecaster, terrible. We had a couple of other guitars as well. We had some really old, amazing Gibsons, and they were just rubbish, and some old Fenders, and they were just rubbish. And then you would get the old one here and there, which was amazing. And the same thing would go with new guitars. You get some new guitars, but just like, you know, some brand new USA Fenders, and you're just like, ugh, you know, what the hell is that? But again, you know, it's all down to personal preference. What doesn't work for you, somebody else will love. And what they don't love, you will. It's totally bizarre. So you just got to take it on what you like and what it feels like to you. You know, you've always got to kind of like perceive things from your angle. You can't perceive things from anybody else's because you're not them and they're not you. So you've always got to kind of do and go for what you want, not what anybody else wants. But, because for all I know, I mean, someone could have picked up that 62 John Russell Strat and gone, this is the best Strat I've ever played. But for me, I thought it was dead, lifeless and dull, and it had no vibe to it whatsoever. It had no history. I mean, not, you know, obviously it was John Entwistle's, but he didn't play this thing. You could tell this thing was in pristine condition. This thing was not a player guitar. This was a collector's guitar. I know, and it was destined to always be a collector's guitar. It had no love in it whatsoever. It wasn't like the 64 or Malcolm 62 or some of the other vintage guitars like my friend Nick's 52 Gibson Les Paul. You know, it's not like those guitars. It wasn't full of love, and it was just full of nothing. It was just empty guitar, and it just had no vibe to it. Anyway, I digress, as I always do. Okay, so yeah, I'm going to move on to question 4 because I've totally moved off question 3, but yeah. Yeah. Oh, I don't know. Maybe I should have somebody in the corner give me electric shocks when I start going off on one. Would that be a good idea? I don't know. Shut up, Dave. Alright, okay, so final question there, everybody. Question 4 is, what are the best settings on the Marshall MG100 combo for a blues sound? Right, now, here is another example of personal preference. So I can tell you my setting for a Marshall MG with, you said you've got a lemon drop Les Paul, and I could tell you a setting that I like, but you might not like, and it might not work for you. Okay? It might, but it might not. It's a 50-50 chance. And this is, again, this kind of ties in quite nice actually with the end of question 3, which wasn't really question 3. Did I even give an answer on question 3? I think I did. I definitely put free pickup Les Pauls. But, anyway. Free pickup customs. Anyway. But yeah, I could give you a setting on an MG that I like for blues, and it's this. OD1, gain all the way up on 10, bass, middle, treble and contour all on 0, and channel volume all the way up on 10. Reverb at 3 and or 4, depending on how reverbed up I want to get. And that's it. That'd be my go-to blues setting. It is my go-to blues setting. It always has been with these things. If I'm going straight in, no pedals. That'd be my setting if I was going straight in, if I wanted like a blues tone out of an MG. But, and this is where this comes in, you might find that too dark and it might not work with your guitar and your setup. You might not like that sound at all. And also, you said MG combo. Now, the MG head, the HDFX versus the DFX are different. They sound different. They're voiced differently. And I don't know why this is, but they are. So the MG HDFX DFX combo is more mid-rangey. I don't know why that is, but for some reason the 100 watt combos, have a barkier mid-range than the HDFX head. Now, why that is, I have no idea, but that's what I've experienced with ones I had. My first ever Flexi was a MG100 combo chassis inside the Super Lead head. It wasn't a HDFX, it was the DFX combo chassis inside the thingy. And it had more bark than this one, because that was my number 2, wasn't it? Yeah, it had more bark than this one in its mid-range. And the same goes for my other MGs. And also the Flexi Blues Deluxe that I had, this really small head, that was an MG combo as well, chassis inside a tiny little plexi head, and that was the same thing. It had a barkier mid-range, which I love regardless because I like mid-range, but they sound different. So this might not work, this setting that I've just said, but it might, because the mid-range is stronger, and I found them to be a little bit brighter than these. These amps are darker sounding than those ones. But that would be my chosen setting, personally, would be to turn the gain all the way up to 10, bass, middle, treble, contour all on 0, and then volume all the way up, reverb about 3 or 4, and then it's going to go from there. But, again, that might still be too dark, in which case you want to be adjusting the mid-range dial. Don't touch the treble, don't touch the contour. The contour dial is... well, it's good if you want to play really scooped out metal, but it really scoops stuff out. I don't like the contour dial at all. But yeah, so that would be the setting I would go for, and that is the setting I always go for. It's like a default setting. If I plug straight into one of these things, that's what I go for. But it might not work. And again, this is personal preference, and amp settings are so personal, and the way you play is personal, and your pedals are personal, and your leads are different to mine, and the way your guitar setup is different to mine. So it's really hard to kind of go, set things to this and it'll work for you, because it won't, most of the time. 50-50. So it might not. So what I will say is if it's too dark and woolly sounding, adjust the mids and the bass if it starts to get too bright. If it starts to get too bright, obviously, lower the mids and boost the bass, but I don't think you'll need the bass because it's a Les Paul. Because MG amps are super bassy. These things are super bassy. I got a lot of low end in them. But especially the clean channels. The clean channels in the MG are really low endy. I never use the bass on the clean channel at all. It's just I've never turned that thing up. You just don't need to. I don't really use the clean channel at all anyway. If I get a clean tone, I get it at OD1, and I just turn the gain down to 4 or 5, depending on kind of where I want to be. 4 is like John Frusciante Slaying Castle. 5 is like John Frusciante Californication Tour. 6 is Hyde Park, basically, just more distorted. And then if I want blues, I just crank it to 10, which gives me Jimi Hendrix, Peter Green, that kind of thing. And then if I want more distortion than that, I'll just kick in overdrive 2, and that takes me to lead zone, basically, in happy places. But so the best setting on the Marshall MG combo for a blue sound would be what I just said for me. So what you're going to have to do is take that as a kind of a jumping off point and go from there. And while I'm here, I'm going to talk about EQ on amps. I've spoke about this before, but this has always kind of confused me. I've never liked, because people say all the time, like, you know, why is everything set at 0? I mean, I've always found that's where my sound lies. I've always preferred that, where it is. But people say, oh, you know, why is everything set at 0? That's weird. You know, you're not. That's kind of not. That's, you know, because you always get told, I'll set everything at 12 o'clock and go from there. But it's not a PA. You know, the EQ on a guitar amp doesn't. 0 isn't in the middle. 5 is in the middle. And it always occurred to me. It always seemed weird. Of like, why would I start at 5 when I should be starting at 0? I always thought like you'd start at 0, and if you want more, you turn that up. You know, and that's how I came to a conclusion of like, you know, that's when I kind of like liked the idea of everything on 0. Because I was like, why would I start at 5? It's not like a PA head, like a PA desk where you've got that EQ where in the middle it's neutral and nothing's happening, and then you can boost or you can cut. Amp doesn't work like that. When everything's on 0, that's neutral. Anything you do from there, so if I turn the bass up, I'm boosting frequencies. So like the core tone of the amp is with everything at 0. I was always thinking the core tone of the amp should be everything at 0, right? So if you set everything to 0 and then all you can do is boost on a guitar amp. That's the way I've always seen it. It's like, and I like to cut frequencies. I don't like to boost frequencies. So I really like that little Harley Benton amp that I demoed the other day, because you do have the ability to do that. When everything's set at 0, it is neutral, but you have the ability to cut or boost like a PA. But most guitar amps, the Orange CL120, the MG here, 95%, if not more, of guitar amps will start at 0 and go to 10 or 11 if you're Nigel Tufnell. And it always dawned on me, like, why would I start with it boosted? Because that's already given me frequencies I might not want. Surely you would start with it at 0, and then if you wanted more mid, treble, presence, bass, whatever your amp's got on it, cut, bite, nibble, whatever. I want an amp that says nibble on it. I got with just a nibble dial. From slight nibble to massive nibble. From mouse to rat. Anyway, but I was always just like, well, sure, you would start with everything at 0, and then if you wanted more, you would turn it up. But if you didn't want more, you would just leave it. But again, you know, I never got it. I was watching an amp demo the other day on the Jake E. Lee Signature Friedman, because I'm a big Jake E. Lee fan. I love Jake E. Lee, and I'd love to try his Friedman amp out at some point. If I ever walk into a shop and it's there, I'm trying it. And the demo was, everything was at 12 o'clock from a get-go, and I'm like, it just seems weird to me. You know, it seems weird now thinking about it to me. I was like, I don't understand that. Like, you know, because you've already boosted middle, treble, bass, and presence, and I think Jake E. Lee's got the Jake E. Lee amp's got like a punch dial on it as well. So you're already boosting everything higher than the amp's neutral sound. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but this is the way I perceive it. This is why I always have the EQ kind of mainly on 0. And if I do use the dial, it's either bass or middle, and that's kind of that. But yeah, I mean, that was the way I always kind of perceived it. As like, you know, it's not a PA. You know, you don't cut and boost guitar amps. You boost them. You can only boost frequencies. You can't cut them. And I've always found that sound that I like so much with everything turned down really low or on 0. You know. But yeah, so. But again, that doesn't work for everybody. It works for me, but it might not work for you. It's a 50-50 split, you know what I mean? So you just got to kind of like take certain things as like, you know, you can't take anything as gospel, because you need to make up your own, if that makes any sense. You know what I mean? You can't, if somebody says, oh, if you did this, this, and this, and this, and this, you'll sound like Jimi Hendrix, lie. You can't do that. No one can do that. You know what I mean? It's like, I can point out, people can point out settings all day long, but it's up for you to go away and find your own way to incorporate that. You know what I mean? Use that advice as a jumping off point. I've said it so many times in my John Frusciante videos, and also certain other videos. Use the settings that I give you as a jumping off point. Don't use them as, oh, that's the setting. It won't work that way. Sometimes it will, sometimes it won't. But use them as a jumping off point. So if you get my settings and you have to say, oh, it's too dark, oh, I'll adjust the mids a bit more. That might work for you, but turning up the treble might work for you. You know what I mean? You've just got to use that as kind of like, the way you kind of do it. You've got to find your way. It's like, people say all the time, like, how do you get John Frusciante's tone? It's like, how do I get my John Frusciante tone? It's like, well, I use a pedal. I don't have, the only things I've got that resemble John's setup are the DS2 and the Ibanez Wah, which I think are the only two pedals you really need to sound like John. Everything else can be got around. The C1 can be got around, the Line 6 delay modeler can be got around, the Line 6 modulation modeler can be got around, the Moog pedals can be got around, the MXR microamp can be got around, the fuzz, all these other pedals can be got around. You don't need them. You don't need them. You do need a DS2, and even an Ibanez Wah is sacrificable. You can get the Vox Silvertop and get a pretty good approximation if you boost it with another pedal. So really, the only pedal you really need for John Frusciante is a DS2 that resembles his setup. You really don't need anything else. So yeah, be that for what it may. Same with Jimi Hendrix. You don't need a Marshall Super Lead, a Arbiter Fuzz Face, a Vox Silvertop Wah, coily cables, a Univibe. You don't need any of these things. You can get around these things by using different things. You can use different pedals to get that sound. You don't need what Jimmy used to get that sound. Same thing with Rory Gallagher. You don't need an AC30 to get Rory's tone. You don't. You don't need a Fender amp to get Peter Green's tone. You don't need a Silver Jubilee to get Slash's tone. You don't need a Hi-Watt to get Dave Gilmour's tone. You know what I mean? You can get around anything using other things. You just got to find what works for you to get that sound. I found a long time ago, I'm very lucky in the fact, obviously I found the Zoom G2, the Marshall Governor, the Jackhammer, the DS2, and all sorts of other stuff, But you've got to find what works for you. You know what I mean? People always use people's advice as guidance, not as gospel. Don't use what they say as, oh yes, that's it, because it's not true. It's not going to work that way. And I say this all the time. You've got to find what works for you, and you've got to. Just because John Frusciante uses a Marshall Major and a Silver Jubilee and a C1 chorus pedal and this, that, and the other doesn't mean you need them to get his sound. You don't. It's a myth. You don't need it. You really don't. You can get by all of that stuff by using other stuff that works for you, that you know how to manipulate, and will get that same effect. And you're never going to sound 100% like them anyway. So, what I mean? Even if you played through their gear, it's not going to, you're not them. It's all different, people. Anyway. But yeah, you should always use kind of like things as a guide. So my advice to you when you say what's a really good setting for a blue sound and MG combo is set the gain at 10, bass 0, middle 0, treble 0, contour 0, volume at 10, reverb at 3 or 4 depending on how spacey you want to get, and then go from there. Put that on the MG, plug in, and then from there tweak it however you want. If it sounds too dark, boost the mids. Don't boost the treble straight off the bat. Go for the mids straight off the bat. If it sounds too weak, boost the bass. You know what I mean? And go from there. Just try that out. But again, use it as a guide. Don't use it as gospel. Because it not all the time will work. It's 50-50. It's a shot in the dark. Sometimes it'll work, sometimes it won't. I remember trying John Frusciante's amp settings on a Plexi in Old Hat, and I was like, it sounds nothing like John Frusciante. Of course it doesn't. It's not going to work. It's not the same amp. You're not him. It doesn't make any difference. And I remember reading an article with Dave Lee talking about the Marshall Major, saying the Marshall Major would change every gig the EQ on that thing had to be changed every gig because it was so inconsistent. And if one went down, you really had to dial it in. It really had to settle back in. He said the Silver Jubilee was a lot more consistent, and I can imagine it was. Because Silver Jubilees are more modern than a Major. And a Major's a pig, anyway, hence the nickname, the pig. But, you know, the Marshall Major is... They're pointless amps, really, in this day and age. You know, a Marshall Major, no one should ever need a Major in this day and age. A 200-watt Marshall head running KT66s or KT88s or whatever it is. You don't need that much power anymore. You know what I mean? 100 watt I still believe in. 200 watt I think is overkill. You know what I mean? Says the man who would run free 100 watt amps if he could. Anyway, but the Marshall Majors they're kind of, you know, they're not the most amazing thing in the world. You know, and I got people saying like, you know, oh, I need to get a Marshall Major sound like John Frusciante. No, you don't. No, you don't. Get a Boss Katana. Turn it to a brown mode. Turn the gain all the way down. Does the job. You know, get one of these. They do the job. Get one of them. They do the job. You know, any amp that's got a Marshall style voice will do that job. And if it doesn't, if you get a Fender, use a pedal. I'm going to do a video on that soon. Because a pedal, a Marshall style pedal like a Jackhammer or a Tone City Golden Plexi, they will Marshallize a non-Marshall amp and will give you a John Frusciante tone. So, you know, and the same thing goes with Jimi Hendrix or whoever your hero may be. You know, you just got to find what works for you. You need to take on other people's advice, but you've got to take it under advisement, if that makes any sense. Like, you know, you've got to take it under your own experience. Like, go, okay, I'll try that. Try everything. If somebody says, try this, try it. But don't expect it to work. Because most of the time, it won't. You've got to do things. And, you know, if it doesn't work for you, it doesn't work for you. You need to find another way. And that's the fun of it, you know. So, anyway, I'm going to have to get off because I'm running out of time. So, anyway, I hope you enjoyed this Q&A, everybody. I hope some of that made some kind of sense. I don't know. It's very early in the morning. And, hopefully there's something in there that makes sense and, you know. But like I say, use that setting I said as a jumping off point. Don't use it as gospel. It probably, you know, 50-50 shot of it working for you. It might not. You know. Let me know anyway. The person who asked question 4, let me know in the comment section below if it worked, and if it didn't, what did you do to tweak it? Let us know in the comment section below. Really curious to know. So yeah, anyway, hope you enjoyed this Q&A, everybody. If you want to submit a question for Q&A, A&Q, description box below has an email link. Just forward emails there. And yeah, have a great morning, afternoon, and a good evening. Yes, goodbye now. Thank you very much for watching. I hope some of this made sense. Hello, Mr. Fear. Yes, you're always there on my shoulder, aren't you? No self-confidence, Dave. No confidence in myself whatsoever. This has to change. Anyway, hope you enjoyed this video. Everybody, I'll see you again. Have a great morning, afternoon, good evening. Goodbye now. As an added little bonus thing, you might have noticed in the intro that, I don't know if you did or not, at some point the select switch tip on the guitar pinged off. I kind of remember it happening. Oh, I found it! I see it! There it is! Got it! This was going to be a little video so I couldn't find it, but we found it, so all's well. Put that back on there. See you later, everybody. Have a great one. Haha.